Police officers don't arrest everybody they see breaking the law, and that's a good thing, and that's something we want to encourage, all right? Police officers have a lot of discretion to decide not to make an arrest in a situation where they could, and they do it all the time, all right? And the privileged access they give to the media, for instance, is an example of that. Yes, that official news van there is blocking a fire lane, but that's okay, I'm not going to bother them. All right. We don't like it when they discriminate, okay, but we do like it when police officers use discretion and don't arrest people that they could arrest lawfully. All right. So I tell activists, all right, don't recklessly blow the police officer's discretion. A lot of times, even if a police officer observes you in a situation that could fairly be characterized as breaking the law, that police officer, in most circumstances, has the discretion not to arrest you. All right? That's, if you're somebody that law enforcement is looking at as a target for a criminal charge, that's your first line of defense, okay? Try to interact with the police officer in such a way that he just decides, I'm not going to arrest this person. Okay, this is one that I'm just going to let go by. But keep in mind that you have some power in an interaction with the police officer. That police officer can use his or her discretion not to arrest you. And if you're inclined to avoid arrest, you should not forego the opportunity to manipulate that police officer's discretion so that it works in your favor, and instead of arresting you, they let you go. In terms of manipulating a police officer in order to get that officer to use his discretion appropriately, it's important to understand how they're trained. And specifically, their training in the use of force. Most of us, I mean, the common meaning of force for us involves a physical touching, a battery, okay? But that's not the way police officers are trained. Police officers are trained to view the use of force in levels. And I'll break down the levels, but point out that within these levels there are sub-levels. But the basic levels are physical presence, verbal direction, empty hand control, intermediate weapon system, and lethal force. The way police officers are trained is in a thing called a matrix. It's a vector. And on one side is the police officer's behavior, basically broken down to those levels. On the other side is the subject's behavior, also broken down into those levels. All right? Why do the police do it that way? They do it that way because, to put it bluntly, and on their behalf, they never know when they're walking down the street whether somebody's going to pull a gun on them and blow their brains out. You know, they rightfully are very concerned about that, because that does happen sometimes. And using the matrix as a police officer is all about control. They want to establish control. And basically, they will continue to escalate until they feel that they are in control. They call it a matrix because what a police officer does depends upon what the subject does. And the way they're trained to analyze the use of force, in most cases, there's some differing opinions on this, is they can go one level above the subject, one level above you. All right? Some say that they should stay at the same level as the subject, but the majority opinion is they can go one level ahead of you. So what does that mean? That means, first of all, that when a police officer appears on the scene, that is a use of force. And we all know that people react to that. Oop, there's a cop here. Okay. When a police officer starts talking, verbal direction, and giving orders, that's a use of force. All right. And we need to understand that. All right. The empty hand control, meaning an officer putting his hands onto you, which is what most people think is a use of force, that's the third step. You're already in trouble if the police officer is at empty hand control. All right. The other implication of the matrix, excuse me, is how the officer perceives you, because it works the other way too. Your physical presence is perceived as a use of force, meaning just the fact that you are there is a threat to them. Just the fact that you are physically present is a potential threat to them. All right? And they work the matrix. All right? They arrive on the scene, and what they're looking for is compliance. All right? So for instance, police officer arrives on the scene. There's 40 people there. Some people are going to change their behavior just because the police officer is there. Acknowledge the police officer's presence, stop something that they're doing, or look at the police officer. That is a demonstration of compliance. They have reacted to me. They have reacted to my presence. All right? If you want to keep a police officer down on the levels, all right, in terms of the matrix, all right, it's not a bad idea that when the police arrive on the scene, don't ignore them. Don't treat them like they're not there. Let them know you know that they're there, all right, because that a demonstration of compliance, all right? And I've got to distinguish that from obedience, okay? I'm not necessarily saying obey everything a police officer tells you to do. What I'm saying is demonstrate compliance, okay? Keep him down at a low level, all right?